Hey, Patriots out there, this is one of the ways that they're going to get you. And this is a story that I haven't heard anyone else discuss, and I found it kind of interesting because it demonstrates how these red flag and yellow flag laws can be used against anybody who just wants to get better prepared for whatever might be coming. And I think a lot of American patriots are starting to feel the need to become better prepared. And of course, this video is brought to you by Midway USA, who's the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them, Patriots can get out there, get the equipment they need, and use the stuff that we're going to talk about that this news article is saying was a problem, okay? So here's basically what happened. There's an island called 700 Acre Island in Maine. Authorities say they seized numerous firearms in Waldo County using Maine's yellow flag law. And I'm reading this to you just because I want to make sure I get the details right, and I just want to touch base on it because it's not really getting any attention. Now, Maine's yellow flag law isn't quite the same as a red flag law, so it has a few extra steps in the middle, so there's a little bit more checks and balances, but according to this story, things don't really seem to matter in that regard. But basically what the yellow flag law does is if someone suspects a gun owner is an imminent threat, whether that person's like a relative or a police officer or anybody else, they can report that person to the police. And then it's up to local law enforcement to take that person into protective custody, order a mental health evaluation from a medical expert, and if the doctor and the police see necessary, apply for a court order to get the guns temporarily taken away. So they can't just do everything arbitrarily on their own without some of these additional steps. So technically this yellow flag law is better than some of the red flag laws out there, but it's still problematic, at least according to this news article, okay? So on Monday, last week, okay, the Waldo County Sheriff's Office says deputies responded to 700 Acre Island for a report of an armed man wearing a ballistics vest walking into the woods. Does that sound like anybody you know? Does that sound like anything you do sometimes? Have you ever put on your gear and walked out into some BLM land or anything like that in order to go get some training going? I mean, I wear that kind of stuff all over my property all the time, but anyway, deputies and the Coast Guard found the man in a boat. They say he didn't have a vest on and he wasn't armed. He was taken to a hospital to get checked out. What? So they found this guy who supposedly was walking into the woods wearing a ballistics vest and carrying a weapon. And when they found him, he was on a boat, not in the woods, and he didn't have a weapon and he didn't have a vest on. So they took him to the hospital. Okay. Then on Thursday, right? So just a few days ago, deputies say several agencies carried out searches on the island and used Maine's yellow flag law to seize numerous firearms. Authorities took a person of interest into custody, but there are no reports of any charges. What? So what's happening there? I mean, we have no details. So look, there's a lot of stuff that could come out here saying that, you know, this person was involved with like an organized criminal ring of some kind, or maybe had extremist ties, or who knows what else, right? But regardless, just based on the information we've been given so far, none of this really adds up. But it is a great example of how easily you'll be targeted by certain individuals out there who don't want to see you walking into the woods wearing a ballistics vest and carrying a weapon. And even when you are found, not in the woods, but on a boat and unarmed and without a ballistics vest, I guess they're going to take you to the hospital, right? So if you live in a state like Maine that has yellow flag laws, or any other state in the country that has red flag laws, you really need to think about this, especially when you're going out into the public domain with some of your gear, which I suggest you do if you want to train, right? And when I say that, I mean anywhere you can legally go do those things, of course, and anywhere that's going to make sense and not put you in jeopardy. Obviously, we want to all get out and train and do what we can to be better equipped and better prepared to use that gear. If you're not out training with it, you don't know what it's going to do, right? So you have to get out and actually use it. But you need to be aware that this stuff can happen, and that if people see you doing that, there's a good chance if somebody doesn't like that concept, they don't like the idea of you training, they don't like the idea of a Minuteman or a Patriot that wants to be better prepared to defend themselves, their community, and their country, well, this can easily happen. And I don't have all the details because this is all I got from that report, right? This is it. And I'm using the piece of paper because it's a short story, but it demonstrates a lot of problems that we're going to probably run into here in the near future when it comes to training and everything else, especially based on the fact that we have members of the House that are trying to introduce legislation to make training in the sense of being a Minuteman illegal, right? So we already know that entire concept is under attack. And now these laws are being leveraged to dissuade some of that training even further. And, for all I know, this person could have been a threat. I don't know the full details, but that's because we weren't given them. All we were told is what I just read to you. And I don't know what that means, but it was a good example, in my opinion, as to what you should expect as things get more contentious around the country. So listen, let me know in the comments below what you think's going on here, right? Because it's possible this person could have been planning something egregious, and we should be glad that they were removed from the equation. But I see the slippery slope here as well, and the negative consequences of targeting anybody who's just in the woods wearing a ballistics vest and carrying a rifle. I mean, that describes half of the people in this community right now, right? Which is why I'm bringing this information to you, so you're aware of this, so you know that that's a risk you're taking when you do these things, and that you need to have at least some protocols in place for how you'll react if that happens to you, okay? So, tell me in the comments, is this some kind of weird situation? Now, once the details come out, we'll have a little bit more clarity. Do you think it's one of those things that we'll just never hear anything else about it ever again? Or do you think that this is just a warning to people who want to go out and train, and a way to try to stop them from wanting to, right? It could all just be a distraction in order to say, oh, look what can happen. You might not want to do that, right? Which is also a problem. So, anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.